You can't do
Texting and
two things
driving
at
is
once.
dangerous.
You can't
Texting
do
and
two
driving
things
is
at once.
dangerous.
You can't do two things at once.
Texting and driving is dangerous, but every day we get in our cars and drive, and while we do this, we continue to attempt to stay connected. When driving a motor vehicle, using a cell phone distracts from the important job of driving safely. Because of this, I'm setting up a learning situation showing the dangers of texting and driving. The learners I am targeting are those individuals aged 16 to 34. The learning tool that will be set up is in the form of a driver simulation kiosk and will initially be placed at the Mall of America. It is important to reach as many people as possible due to the need for driving and texting dangers to be ingrained in the population. Using a phone to text makes the driver even more dangerous as they take their eyes off the road to look at their phone. The average length of time a driver looks at their cell phone while driving is 5 seconds. At 55 miles an hour, 5 seconds is the time that the vehicle will travel the length of a football field. A person texting on a cell phone is up to 23 times more likely to get into a crash. For existing resources, there are organizations, advertising, apps, and there are also state-run texting and driving courses. These are all good scaffolding devices, but do not give the situational learning that is needed. The learners in the target audience are connected and can communicate, get information, and share knowledge at any time and in any place. Drivers who text and drive know the danger, but still engage in the behavior. While 98% of those surveyed understood the dangers, about 3 out of 4 drivers have texted while driving. So the goal of my project is education of individuals of the dangers of driving and texting, and take away the confidence that this behavior can be done safely. By the completion of this learning experience, the learner will be able to explain why texting and driving is not a good idea, give an example of a strategy they will use to stop texting while behind the wheel, identify if texting and driving is illegal in the state they live in, state the penalty for texting and driving, and sign an I will not text and drive agreement. It is important that the learner sees the state statute so they are aware that the behavior of texting and driving is illegal. The other piece of information that will be given is the penalties. In setting up the learning situation, the Mall of America was chosen due to its visibility. The kiosk itself will be small enough to fit into a space with room for observers. It will also be able to be moved from location to location in the US. The simulation will be state-of-the-art, as seen in this video. It is important that as many elements as possible are in the context of the learner's actual practices. The simulator will also have eye tracking technology, so once simulation is over, the learner can review where they are looking and also see how long they are not watching the road. The learner will use their own personal phone. This will keep the learner's experience in a context they are used to. There will also be an observation area. The extrinsic motivation for observers may be watching others texting and driving, but these inactive participants will in fact be learning about texting and driving as they watch. Having a voting option will help engage them in the message. Effectiveness will be determined by a questionnaire at the end of the learning session and a follow-up after 1 month and after 6 months in which the objectives will be discussed. In terms of behaviorism, the stimulus is being connected while driving and the response is texting and driving. If the driver doesn't get any negative response, the behavior continues. In a constructionist way, the teaching of the dangers of texting and driving must be taught in an environment that gives the learner a situated cognitive experience. In looking at the texting driver, the behavior is encultured in the individuals who practice this behavior. The person who texts and drives does so due to the influence of society. The behavior is facilitated through the use of the cell phone as a learned behavior and needs to be shown to cause harm when practiced in both an internal way and externally through social means. Jim is a 21-year-old college student heading to the Mall of America. As he enters the west end of the mall, he sees a small crowd. The crowd is watching a large screen with a scene looking out a car window. Once the simulation ends, the player steps out of the booth under the screen. The screen asks, how did the driver do? Pass or fail? The driver is then led to an area where they get to review their driving experience with trained helpers who can point out the dangers of distracted driving. The screen comes to life. A few people rate him a pass, but the majority text fail. Jim is intrigued. With so much going on in his life, staying connected 24/7 is important to him, and texting while driving has become common. How dangerous is it? I've never been in an accident, Jim thinks. thinks, but he does remember a near miss he had last week. He watches as another person is given instruction and seatbelted into the simulation car. Jim has heard texting and driving can be dangerous, but it's never felt that way to him as he's careful when he texts and drives. In fact, Jim thinks he would do pretty good at this. He decides to give it a try. He meets with an employee who gets his name and his cell number. His number is set up in the system, so it'll call the kiosk number. Jim is told he will enter the simulator, and he will sit in the driver's seat. He will make 2 runs. The first will be to get to know the course and the controls of the car. The second run, though, will be with words scrolling at the bottom of the screen. His job is to drive the course while texting those words into the phone number given him. Jim's turn, and he's feeling excited and a bit nervous. He gets in and buckles up. He steps on the gas, and the car starts moving. The practice is over, and now it's time for some texting. Jim is ready, and he's anticipating a successful run. Jim accelerates smoothly, and then his phone vibrates. He looks down and sees the words he needs to text. Jim starts to text. Oh, there's a curve coming. Jim watches the road, hits the straightaway, and quickly types. He notices that he went off the road slightly on the shoulder, but recovered nicely. The texting continues as Jim drives the course. Then the traffic builds, but Jim is ready. He's now in his element. The daily commute and rush hour. The words pop up on his phone. Jim quickly sends a text as traffic slows quickly ahead. Traffic moves again. Another message. Jim looks down at his phone, and traffic slows. Soon, the simulation is over. Jim is taken to the side where he can see the replay. He never realized that his texting affected his driving that badly. Then the accident. Embarrassing. And he sees there's plenty of time to stop. The workers are sympathetic. Jim, this isn't really a test, but a way to show you that even the best drivers need to keep their attention on the task of driving. Jim is beginning to understand that this could be dangerous even for him. Luckily, the accident happened on the simulator and not on the road home. The workers give Jim a test and ask questions about his experience. He is humbled by the experience and knows that he is more likely to get into an accident while texting and driving. Jim takes a look up at the screen and notices the crowd has voted overwhelmingly to fail him. With all the publicity and campaigns to stop texting and driving, even making it illegal, the problem continues. Please share this with those closest to you. It could save their life.